Welcome to the Creating Salon Success podcast, where you will find educational and inspiring interviews to help you create your dream salon. And here's your beauty salon systemization expert, spa owner, and entrepreneur, Louisa Ashforth.
Hi, I'm Louisa from LA Training Academy, Creating Salon Success. I'm here this morning with Marianne, and just thank you so much, Marianne, for coming on today. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem, thank you. So I'm going to let Marianne introduce herself, and she can tell you a little bit more about what it is that she does. So if you want to just introduce yourself, Marianne, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Louisa. So my name is Marianne Killick, and I'm a women's health coach and author and acupuncturist. And so I work with women to basically take them from feeling rubbish and frazzled and burnt out or hormonally imbalanced to feeling wonderful and recharged and getting their health in order. But more importantly, understanding their bodies and how their bodies and hormones work. That's my big thing, making sure women understand how their bodies work so that they can make the healthy choices they want to make.
Sounds perfect. I think we could all do a bit of that sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
So I always start these with just some sort of quick fire questions. So first of all, what book are you reading right now?
So the one I'm reading,
personal development or fiction or whatever it is, just
the one I'm reading right at the moment is kind of I suppose it is personal development, but it's this one here, how to bringing up race, how to raise a kind child in a prejudiced world. It's a new book that's just come out, and it's obviously very topical with everything that's gone on this summer.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's about how to raise children when the world is unjust in terms of whether you're coming from a place of privilege or from the opposite, where you're facing prejudice all the time. And it's a really tricky issue, and I thought, actually, I've got no idea how to talk to my kids about this other than kind of be nice. So I've only just started it, but yeah, it's really interesting.
So would you recommend that book then so far?
So far, so good. I really would. It's also things like, so if your child says something that's racist or witnesses something that's racist, and how to talk to them, and but without kind of, I suppose, without turning it into an issue that causes even more problems. So it's I think it's a really important book right now, and certainly as a parent, it's an area that until this summer I'd not really given much consideration. So this is a real challenge for myself, challenging my own perceptions and challenging my parenting and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to put that in the comments actually, because I do know what you mean. I've never really given it much thought, and I think it's a bit of an ignorance really, isn't it? Because not intentionally, but it's such an awkward topic. I always worry like what I'm going to say, but I always think you just think, well, I'm not racist, but I watched a program recently, and it highlighted a few things that I'd never ever thought of. And sometimes you don't think that you're racist, but because we don't think of colour or you don't see colour, that is racism in itself. So it's a lot about educating yourself on, we don't know what it's like to grow up in that kind of environment or world, do we? So I think it is really, really important, like you're saying, it is good to highlight those things. And when you've got children, I suppose
I've got no idea how to talk to them about this, and it's I've always tried to raise my children, sort of say kind of be nice to everybody, and appreciate that people have differences and all of that kind of thing. But I think I'm missing a trick somewhere, and certainly as kids get old enough to hear things and stories on the radio and stuff, they're going to start asking questions about things, and I don't know how to answer them yet. So when I saw this book coming out, I thought it'd be really, really useful one for me to read.
I've not heard of it, but actually, I think you're right. I'm definitely going to put that in the comments, because I think a lot of people would be interested in that. And it isn't an intentional ignorance that we have.
No.
I do think that it's just sometimes, like you say, it's just you don't know how to explain it in a prejudiced world, and it's not just colour, is it? It is like sort of disabilities and things like that you don't realise or know how to explain it to other children.
And if you point at someone who looks different, someone who's behaving differently, and you're trying to strike that balance between what you say in terms of don't stare at them, or which also almost kind of reinforces that it's something you mustn't discuss or look at, or do you say just give an explanation? It's all those kind of things, and I just figured something that helps me in that way. A good
We need
start.
all the help we can get, don't we? So good on you for taking action there and actually doing something about it and looking into it more. I think that is really, really good. That kind of leads on to my next question. So I was just about to say that's quite inspiring. So I was just going to sort of say to you, who inspires you, whether it's somebody in your family, somebody famous, somebody who you've come across?
So the two key women that spring to mind with inspiring me, and one is Michelle Obama. You know, I generally admired her, and then I heard a speech she gave to young people about, you know, it's the fairly famous one where she says, you know, when they go low, we go high, and all of that. And the way she expressed herself was just so incredible, and her passion for raising others up just really spoke to me. And then I read her book, her autobiography, and reading her story about how she comes from really humble background, but it was that grit and determination that got her through, and the challenges she faced. I just thought, wow, you know, if you can face that many barriers in life and still, you know, this is aside from her being, you know, first lady, but in her own professional side of life, you know, to go from being in a fairly kind of rundown, fairly poor neighborhood, facing all sorts of barriers, again, intending to bring up race again, but, you know, because obviously being a black, but in Chicago at the time and the wrong side of the tracks kind of thing, and how her mindset got her through, and then the challenges she faced when she went to university, and, you know, as a highly intelligent woman, but in an environment where A, there weren't that many women, and B, there weren't that many black women, and so the whole how she got herself through, how she pushed herself forward, it's just really inspiring. You know, there's this whole, you don't give up and you keep going and you better yourself and you use the challenges to elevate yourself. So it's absolutely fascinating life story there. And then the other lady, again another American lady, is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and she died just last month. And so she's an incredible woman. So she's the first, she was a justice on the Supreme Court in the USA, and again she's a lawyer, and she had a pivotal role in bringing women's rights and, you know, about women's working rights and women's equality in the USA. But again, if you look at her life story, you know, how she married quite young, her kids quite young, but still put herself through law school, and, you know, managed to, again, this whole idea of when you've got a passion about something, you don't give up and you keep going. And also what I love about her, which ties in more with what I do now, is the way she realized that she had to look after herself health-wise in order to achieve what she was achieving. So even in her 90s, you know, she was there going to the gym, doing planks and push-ups.
Wow.
And yeah, it's incredible when you look at her and you see videos of her, you know, this kind of quite petite, almost delicate looking lady, but there she is pumping out all these full-on push-ups and planks. I'm like, oh my God. The rest of
that is inspiring.
It is. It's that whole idea that, you know, if you want to achieve your dreams, that you've got to look after your health as well. So and that really ties in terms of, you know, as running our own businesses, you know, whatever we want to do, if our health doesn't come first, then it's going to be so much harder to, you know, run your clinic or push your business forward if you're not radiating health yourself and you're not feeling well. So she's amazing, absolutely inspiring woman, really.
What's her name again?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I must look into her. I'm really rubbish at, you know, like looking at other people. So I love doing these and asking these questions, because people do, like obviously Michelle Obama, of course I've heard of her, and absolutely totally agree, really, really inspiring lady, and like you say, appropriate for the book that you're actually reading and what's been going off in the world over the summer, and still is and has been. Obviously I don't mean it's just something that's happened, but seeing people and people that you can relate to overcoming challenges, it helps in your everyday life and in business. I think that if they can get through that, I can get through this, and it kind of puts things into perspective sometimes, doesn't it?
It really does, because I think sometimes when we see really successful people in business or other areas of life, we don't know how they got there, you know, and we assume they've already started at some point up here. And obviously some celebrity type people, they have, you know, if they've been born into celebrity or born into family that's already billionaires, millionaires, that kind of thing, you can see how where they're at. But for other people and you know, for most normal people who don't start in that position, you know, it can be quite challenging if you think that everyone around you, all those successful people, have started somewhere up here. Actually, it's so inspiring to read stories of people who've started right down here, you know, and really somehow got there. And when you read it, you realize they're just normal people. They're just normal people like you and I, and yet they've not somehow crumbled at the challenges. They've risen, and that, to me, I found that really, really inspiring.
It just makes you think that anything's possible, doesn't it? And then when you see this 90-year-old petite lady doing push-ups and whatever else, I think that again makes you think, if she can do that, and keep going. And like you said, we all spend time, especially as a woman, and I'm not saying that men don't, because of course they do, but especially we because we're known for multitasking, we multitask the kids, the house, the whatever, and for some reason we don't multitask on ourselves, and we think, well, all right, I'm all right, but then there's only so much we can all take, isn't there?
There really is. And I see women like this all the time in my clinic, and I see so many women in their 50s and 60s, and their health is really starting to fall apart. You look back and you talk to them about their lives, and you realize that actually they've done a cracking job looking after everybody else. They've they've raised their kids, they've cared for their husband, then they've cared for elderly parents, they've done all of this kind of stuff, and at no point have they looked after their own bodies. And that's because they just haven't considered themselves in that mix. They had to themselves, they've not been a priority, and I find it really frustrating, because through my own studies, and things that I've learned, what I'm realizing is what we do now, and particularly if once we're in our late 30s and into our 40s, if we don't get it right now and sort ourselves out at this stage, we are setting ourselves up for a really rubbish old age. So and that's one of the reasons I do what I do, because we have so much control over our own health for how we live and what we do. But if we're not prioritizing ourselves because we're so busy looking after everybody else, and ultimately we're the ones who have the rubbish health and live in pain and discomfort and don't have a really good older years, where we could be out exploring the world and doing all these things now we're free, and it's not happening. I have these ladies come into my acupuncture clinic, and their health is shot, and it doesn't have to be like that. And so I'm kind of a bit on a mission really to get women who are now in their 30s and 40s to really wake up to that and understand their body and how they live impacts themselves, and again to work on that whole mindset around the importance of prioritizing their health.
I think you're right. I on a very similar thing, I get that a lot. So obviously, as you know, I've got a beauty salon and do massage. I do a lot of massage and really love it. And it saddens me the amount of. I always joke and say men are my best clients, because they are coming from hell or high water. They are in that salon. They're having their massage. Whereas women, they'll often be like, oh, Freddie needs some new shoes, or I've got to go here, I've got to go there. And I just see them just like almost deprioritizing themselves. So they booked it, they're in. And don't get me wrong, a lot don't do this, and they are, but it's about educating them as to why they need that. And, instead of like gone from sort of like back's getting sorted, they're feeling better, they're not in that stress state anymore, but then they've gone an extra week and then another extra week. And then before you know it, they're almost back where they started, because months have gone by and you're like, oh, we were doing so well. And I get it.
Looking after yourself is preventative care, isn't it? I think we've got a real mindset here in this, particularly in this country, that you look after yourself when it's going wrong. That's the point. You do something about it. Actually, the concept of preventative medicine is really a poor one. And coming from the sort of Chinese medicine background like I do, the whole origins of Chinese medicine were that you use it to feel well, and it stops you becoming ill in the first place. I think if we can get women in particular to understand that actually they're going to do a better job of all the things they want to do if they use preventative approach of self-care in terms of making sure their bodies don't hurt, eating the right stuff, getting good sleep, all of that kind of thing, then they're going to be more empowered to do all the stuff they want to do, and the million multitasking things. Not that they should have to multitask in so many ways.
No, but they can do it a lot better if they're feeling at least 95%, so it's about, I suppose, like you say, preventative, maintaining that they're looking after themselves all the time, not waiting for them to have a problem to sort it out. It's about you do need that massage, you do need that acupuncture, you do need that healthy food to ensure that you don't get that pain, and you're less used when you're in bed for a week because you've let yourself get down, aren't you?
Or when your back goes into spasm and you can't do anything for 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 weeks because you're in so much pain. Whereas actually, if you've had the massage or the acupuncture treatment, then if you'd had it every couple of months, once a month, that kind of thing, you wouldn't get in that state in the first place. And that is the way out of long-term health problems, is that regular maintenance. It's not just throwing everything at it for 4, 5, 6 weeks when you're actually having a problem, and then as soon as the problem seems to go, you drop everything and go back to exactly what you did before. And it's funny, you see it all the time with patients, when you're working with them, they feel better, they say, oh, I'm going to stop, and you're going, maybe a few more to really embed this. And then sure enough, 6 weeks later you get a phone call and they're back, they've had a setback. And then usually they come in, and I have some people come every quarter, and it just keeps them topped up. I
was just going to say that sometimes people think that they're saving money and saving time by not keeping it up, actually you end up spending more money because you've gone from coming every quarter to once a week to get it up, and then you sort of, if you keep doing that, actually you've spent more money and more time, and it's harder work to get better than it is to just keep a happy medium all the way along.
It really is, and it's the same again with, you know, hormones and all of that. You know, it's we don't think of our hormones unless we're trying to get pregnant, or, you know, it all starts going a bit wrong and we really notice them because they're making us feel rubbish. And actually it's kind of how, again, if we actually know how our body works, which women aren't taught, then if we know how our bodies work, we know how what we do impacts on all of that, and we can become kind of masters of managing our own hormones in many ways. And although we can't avoid things like going through menopause, we can smooth the path, we can make it less of a bumpy road, you know, and so it's preventative, you know, and that's what I'm really trying to work with women on at the moment on is understanding their hormones, understanding their bodies, but understanding what in their life impacts their hormones and how their hormones impact their lives. And so that, you know, as women head through these transitions in their lives, it's not so traumatic for them and it doesn't actually ruin their life. You know?
Yeah, this is really interesting actually, because it's not something that I've ever really thought of. I think when you're young, you don't think hormones, except for when you hit puberty and you're like, oh, the start of the period, they're getting a little bit ratty, or you're getting a bit, you know, whatever. They're all hormonal. And then I know as an adult, you sort of say, oh, I'm probably just hormonal. And I think we use it as a word, but don't really understand it unless you're getting pregnant or going through the menopause or something that is a situation or an era in life or whatever. But I'm just going to jump here because you've actually written a book, haven't you, to try and help educate people. So I think this is just a perfect time just to bring it up because...
Well, I did. So this book is called Put Yourself First, A Busy Woman's Guide to Thriving, Not Surviving. I think because many women just bowl along surviving. And I wrote it for various reasons, and it really is born out of my sort of last decade working with women, and find myself explaining the same things to them over and over again. And I thought, well, there's obviously a real knowledge gap here in terms of women's understanding their bodies, down to things like understanding their menstrual cycle, when their fertile window is, you know, what they're eating and drinking makes them feel each month, and just generally understanding, you know, that connection between the food and drink you put in your mouth and how you feel in your head and in your body. There's a real disconnect there. And the whole concept of guilt, you know, in terms of, I hear so many women beating themselves up big style, going, oh, I don't know why I can't cope with this. I don't know why I'm situations are me. And it's like, wow, we're so hard on ourselves. We absolutely are horribly hard on ourselves. And you just wouldn't, the way women speak to themselves or speak about themselves, they would never do that to their friend.
I was just going to say that you would never speak to your friend like that. And if you heard someone speaking to somebody else like that, you'd be like, hang on a little minute, that's a bit harsh. But yet we do it to ourselves.
We do it to ourselves all the time. And so I suppose the first half of my book is really working on the mindset around, you know, being kind to yourself, and also learning about how to prioritize yourself. Because again, that's the other thing, you know, as I was saying a few minutes ago, that women do everything for everyone else, and then, you know, the concept of time for themselves is non-existent. And you know, that how to carve out time in your week and your day, and how to delegate, you know, to make sure that it's not all falling on you. That's kind of all in the first half of my book. And then the second half is all about, you know, understanding your hormones and what they do in your body, and understanding what your period can tell you, because you know, how you have a period each month, it tells you loads about where you're at in your body. And then explaining what you can do about it. So, you know, from the diet and lifestyle point of view, and you know, it's kind of, I was asked, you know, if you could get the women you want to help in a room for 2 hours, what would you tell them? And that's how my book was born. You know, this is what I want women to know and believe will really make a huge difference to their lives if they can get this in their heads. And it's written with little questions in to ask yourself and make you reflect. And it's done from the health coaching point of view of really making you come up with your own answers, because obviously that's my other hat is coaching women to make changes. And you know, I work a lot with women who've got things like endometriosis or excuse me, heading into perimenopause, you know, and the solutions, we have the solutions in here, we know the answers. Sometimes you just need somebody to help bring that out of you and to help challenge yourself. So it's educating, but it's also challenging you, this book, to really think and work on yourself as a project.
Yeah, do you know, I'm probably a bit open here, but I have endometriosis and had it for about 10 years. And I just kind of never looked into what it was, just knew I'd got it, knew it hurt every month a bit more than some might have it. I mean, some might have a normal period and mine was a bit more painful or whatever. But I never really thought to educate myself on it. How random is that? I've got something that I never really, lately I have actually been looking into it a little bit more for one reason or another. But it's funny how you can have something for so long and you just trust the medical profession. They go, oh, you've got endometriosis. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and nothing else is said. It's the same with things like polycystic ovarian syndrome. You know, the number of women I've worked with over the years who go, well, I've got PCOS. I'm okay. And I said, well, has anyone explained how this impacts the rest of your health and your body? And it's the same with endometriosis. And they're like, no. And because it's only spoken to you about in terms of how it affects your period, you know, and or how it affects baby making. And beyond that, if you're not having, you know, if you're not trying to make a baby or you're not talking about it in relation to your period, nobody explains to women how it impacts so many other aspects of your health. And, you know, for example, like with endometriosis, the fatigue some women can feel, you know, the absolute crushing fatigue. And I was working with a woman recently and you know, when I talked about this, she's like, well, that's part of my endo. That's why I feel like that all the time. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I didn't know that until just this moment. And I'm quite an energetic person. I'm very rarely sit still. But sometimes I am exhausted. And I just think, well, it's my job. I just have a very physical job. And I do a lot of massage. I put my heart and soul into it. So I just think, gosh, I'm whacked today. And I just put it down to work all the time, but it might be more than that.
It could be, it might be, it might not. You know, everyone presents with endo differently, but you know, and that's the thing, because it does present with so many different other symptoms and issues around it. And you know, again, no one's educating women about the wider implications of these conditions on their health moving forward and long term. So, or about what you can do through diet and lifestyle. There's huge amounts you can do for all these conditions through diet and lifestyle. It doesn't get rid of them, but in terms of managing them and making life a heck of a lot easier and making you feel, you know, energized and well and happy, and that you can live the life you're choosing to live, as opposed to live the life you can just about manage to live because of your condition. You know, nobody helps women understand this, and that's where someone like me comes in and helps you look at that from a kind of nutritional perspective, from a kind of stress management, you know, from a mindset perspective. And you know, that's what I work on all these women with, to put together all these different aspects of their lives and help them bring it in, and the transformations can be huge.
I bet. And I've actually, because obviously we know each other through a mutual Facebook group, don't we? And I've seen a lot of people in this group reading your book, and it's on my list of things to do, as we do, to order. And you know, now talking to you, I'm thinking, gosh, I should have ordered this book like weeks ago. And I've seen it has helped a lot of people in the group already that I've just come across their odd comment, and I'm thinking, okay, but I never really sort of looked into it more until we're talking now, and I'm thinking, you know, we just need to educate ourselves more on ourselves, don't we? And
we really do. And you know, it's a huge bugbear of mine that obviously when we're at school, you know, and we go through puberty and all the rest of it, and we get the talk, you know, about periods and all of that kind of stuff. You know, it's spoken about just purely in relation to our uterus and our ovaries. You know, nothing else is mentioned. No one tells us about the brain involvement, and you know, no one tells us about our heart health and how that's all impacted by our hormones, or our kidneys, and you know, or you know, our mental health. You know, and that's a huge deal, or the impact of hormones and mental health. And you know, it can have devastating consequences, and women aren't educated as to how this works, or on so for example, I've just completed delivering a 4-week online course about hacking your menstrual cycle, and I've been taking everyone through what each section of your cycle does to you mentally and emotionally, as well as physically. And so the different hormones through our monthly cycle impact our mood, and impact our decision making, impact our behaviors. And if we understand that, we can work with it, and we can actually use it to empower ourselves. So at this point in the cycle where you're feeling energized and creative and dynamic, that's where you do your kind of marketing planning and stuff. You know, and if you're at the point where you're feeling, oh, you know, there's no point in trying to, you know, design a new flyer or come up with a new course idea or anything like that, because you won't. Actually, if you just stick to doing your filing and maybe entering your accounts on your spreadsheet for those couple of days, that's all you need to be doing, because actually that's not the best time. And if you understand that about your cycle, you can use it to your advantage, but also know that, you know, when you're going to be a bit more vulnerable, you know, immune system wise, when you're going to be kind of open to trying new workouts, all of those things. And it's like, it's incredibly powerful, but we're not taught any of it.
No, and we're not even really taught why we need to know. And it's only like just literally talking to you in 5 minutes. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I need to go on this course. I've never ever been interested in my menstrual cycle. And I've always thought, why do I need to know? It just happens. But that's because that's the education I've got of in, that's what happens. This is what happens throughout your month. I know the things of the endometriosis for me, other people, I know friends that have got, like you say, polycystic ovaries, I know their little things that happen to them, but never thought of using my cycle to my advantage.
No. Well, then, and you can, or also, if you're raising teenage girls, explaining to them that, certain times of their cycle, they're more likely to make some poor decisions over, like making risky behavior decisions, at certain times in their cycle. So if they know this, and it's also recognizing your cycle and understanding it from a fertility point of view, as much as not getting pregnant as it is about getting pregnant, so that you can recognize what's going on for you, and again, if you understand your body like that, then you can make decisions for yourself as you move through life. So for example, if you notice that your cycle's changing but you haven't yet, say for example, met the person you want to be with or start a family with, you might choose to, if you're sort of mid-30s, go, well, hang on a minute, I noticed my cycle started changing, I'm going to go and pay for a private fertility assessment, see where I'm at, and decide whether I need to make some decisions, in terms of doing it alone, as more and more women do. I work with a number of women at the moment who are going down that whole starting a family by themselves. It's happening more often. Or whether you want to maybe freeze some eggs. There's it's things that people don't think about until it's too late. But if we had an idea of how our bodies work to start with, you have those choices, and therefore it's up to you to how you how you choose to make your life go, as opposed to suddenly realizing it's not happening.
And we live in a world today, don't we, where we're so lucky that we've got this amazing technology and these amazing things that we can do. And I guess you just think, unless I'm a celebrity, I'm not going to freeze my eggs. Not that they're the only people that can freeze their eggs, but you think it's going to have a massive cost or whatever. And you hear it on the news that, I don't know, Posh Spice has done this or something, and you don't see that they are just normal people like us, but you just don't connect that that's the case. You just think, oh, I can't do that, just little old me.
No, and again, you can plan for it. I mean, some of these things are quite expensive, but a lot of it, you could make the choices about how. Again, it's about having the knowledge to make the choices, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you could choose to put some finance aside to deal with this issue, if that's what your choice is. But if you don't know, then you can't tell from looking at a 35-year-old whether their eggs are like a 23-year-old or like a 45-year-old. You can't tell from the outside, and it's. Because it is becoming more of an issue, but there's loads you can do through diet and lifestyle to help preserve your fertility a bit longer, to maximize your egg quality, all of those things. But if you don't know, how are you in charge of your own life?
I think you just take it for granted, don't you? You think, well, I'm a woman, that's what happens, that's what will happen, and it's not always the case, is it, unfortunately? And or like you say, you don't meet that partner, or you don't. There's different things that happen in your life, and I like
isn't it?
I like what you've just said. It's about making those choices to take control of your own life. I think that is just a really, really good phrase that we should use today.
we should we've got so much power over our own health in our own hands, and we don't realize it. There's so much information out there now about how you hear people saying, oh, everyone in my family has died of a heart attack, this kind of thing, or everyone in my family's had such and such. And obviously genetics play a part in our overall health, but this concept of we're born with a certain set of genes, but it's how we live that can often pull the trigger. And so it's understanding that, and then trying to load the dice back in your favor. So if everyone in your family has had heart disease, well, that what that tells me is you need to be living in a really healthy way. But if you don't understand what that is, because no one's explained to you about how your body as a woman impacts your heart and your health and all of that, how can you make the choices?
Because I guess you don't want to just think, well, I'm going to die of a heart attack because everybody else has. It's not a very good attitude.
People do. People say, oh, well, that's going to be my fate. And it's like, it doesn't have to necessarily, or you can minimize the chances of it. Or if it's still going to happen, you can increase your chances of a great recovery afterwards. It's all of those things, and it impacts so many aspects of our health. It really does.
Wow. That was just a long obviously between us a bit of a conversation about that answer, but I loved that. I'm just like, oh, I feel like my mind's buzzing, you know.
Well, it's really exciting when you realise, you know, how your body actually works and what you can do to influence it. It is kind of mind blowing. You know, women are there going, why didn't I know this before? And certainly, you know, part of this came out of my own journey, you know, to coming into this, because again, so I used to do a really stressful job. I used to work in the legal field, and it was super, super stressful. And that's where I went for acupuncture, first of all, because I just felt rubbish. I was having horrendous periods every month, and, you know, it was horrendous pain, and, you know, like pain all the way down my legs, and, you know, I just felt horrid. And so I knew I was stressed out. And then, so I got into acupuncture that way. And I was at the point where I knew I needed to get out of the work I was in. It was killing me. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, because what I did was really interesting. And every time I looked at job descriptions, I was like, that's actually going to be quite boring, you know. But then, so that's how I got down the acupuncture route. And then through acupuncture, we started learning about cycle tracking. And I was at the point where, you know, knew I'd want to start a family fairly soon. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder, you know, and through cycle tracking, I realised I wasn't like ovulating when I thought I was. And actually, so if we'd followed kind of the usual advice, it probably would have taken us a hell of a lot longer to start a family. And I realised my cycles were a bit wonky and out. And I just thought, oh, okay. And I'd never again thought about that. And so I hadn't thought about all of this before, but suddenly it was impacting my life and my understanding. And then when we were trying for babies, you know, I went through a series of miscarriages, which was obviously horrendous.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, my way of coping is to understand things. Yeah. And then I was desperately trying to find out information about, you know, progesterone and all of this, nothing out there, you know, and I thought, wow, okay, this is really wrong. And I started learning more about my cycle, my fertility and all of that. And I just thought, why has nobody taught me this? Why do I not know this?
Yeah.
And then when I was pregnant with my daughter, I had gestational diabetes. And then, so this is where my understanding of blood sugar started coming, you know, because I wasn't on the risk factors for gestational diabetes. And so I was told, right, you'll be invited to this, you're going to be invited to this meeting with a nurse who's going to tell you what you need to do. But me, being me, had already scoured the internet and done loads of reading about blood sugar balance. That's just how I work. That's how I cope with things, is like, if I understand it, I can handle it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I went along and this nurse that said, ladies, you know, if you like your cake and if you like your Coca-Cola, you're going to have to give it up for a while. And there's me expecting to be told about all these kind of slow release grains and slow release carbohydrates and balancing your proteins and your fats and all of this. And this was the extent of the advice. And I sat there and I thought, right, no wonder we have a diabetes problem in this country if this is the level. And again, you know, then through my own research with that, realizing the impact that blood sugar balance has on your whole health. And again, why are we not taught this at school? You know, at school we learn how to dissect flowers, don't we? You know, all the reproductive systems of a flower. Yeah. Why are we not taught how the food we eat impacts our bodies, our mental health and everything else? So that's then how that evolved. Then my work with women. And then I diversified off and did my training as a women's health coach, looking at functional medicine, functional nutrition, how that works. And it's all kind of just, so it's a combination of my academic studies, my personal journey and everything just coming together that has led me to this book and led me to the work I do now. And I think it's probably fair to say I'm fairly passionate about it because, you know, I've been
I can see why.
But, you know, well, I've been on the tricky receiving end of it all.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're there and you're thinking, God, is my unborn baby at risk here? Because of all of these kind of issues. And then the guilt that goes with that because you thought you were eating healthy and actually it wasn't as healthy as it could be. And all these things, it's like, wow. You know, no wonder we're in a mess nationally, globally in terms of health, because there is a complete disconnect between how people live and how their bodies work.
Absolutely. But yeah, like you've just said, that's it's not entirely the reason that I started my skincare range, but I didn't have acne all through school. I was absolutely fine. And then 25, started with acne. I did learn a bit about the body because it turned out to be a stress related thing. But obviously skincare it doesn't cure acne because obviously it's more going off inside your body than actually nothing topical that you can put on your face will necessarily solve the acne problem, but it will help. So it kind of got me more and more interested in skincare. And so I think when you have got experience in something or something's impacted your life and you are on the receiving end of something, then when you're trying to educate or share that with people, and you are passionate because you know it works because you've benefited from it.
Yeah.
And, or like for myself, I've benefited. And then when I'm seeing other people who I'm not helping, they're doing it themselves, but I'm educating and therefore they're helping themselves. And I love that. It's such a nice feeling to see people and learning about themselves as well.
Absolutely, and watching that transformation take place.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess that leads us into my next question. What skincare product could you not live without?
Oh, wow. Right. So I'm the kind of person that goes to a salon, they're saying, what's your beauty routine? And I'm like, I wash my face
You're not on your own.
in terms of in terms of makeup, you know, I quite like a really natural look, and so my number one product really would be, it's the Bare Minerals Original Foundation.
Oh, love it. No one else has said Bare Minerals. It's my favourite.
I love Bare Minerals, you know, because it's all about not putting rubbish on your skin, isn't it? And
100%, yeah. And that, again, like from your point of view, that's as in your background, and totally acne, don't slap all the stuff on your face because it's not good for you. It's just going to block everything.
I love it because I had a severe allergic reaction a number of years ago, and it burst some of the tiny wee blood vessels on the tops of my cheeks, and it means that I flush really easily. Like, so if I even sniff a glass of wine, that's it, boom, I'm right red. You know, and you know, if I get either warm or tense or stressed, you know, I literally am like this rose pink, and I'm really conscious of it, and I find that just a light coating of the Bare Minerals foundation just takes it down, you know, and therefore I feel so much more confident, you know, when I'm having to come on camera or do a live or something like that, or in a social situation, you know. So I love the stuff because it's really light on your skin, and it's really okay.
And the same, it's got a really, really good coverage. Like you say, it's redness, but it does cover it. But you think powder, it's not going to cover it, but it absolutely does. And I love it. And I just put like that's all I've got on today, just a tiny little bit of eyeliner, mascara, and a bit of lippy. I do blusher, but again, Bare Minerals, and I love the natural look. So totally get it.
And you can build it up, can't you? So if I'm, you know, wanting to go out and make it a more of a glamorous type evening outlook, you just add a bit more on. You just keep applying the layers and working it in, and you know, so you can go that really light day-to-day coverage just to take the pinkness off, or you can really glam up if you want to, you know. So no, I love that stuff. That's the one product I would, you know, always have.
I'm the same. Love it. Love Bare Minerals. Yeah, definitely. Big fan. It's such a not to go into it, but they've stopped salons and spas stocking it now. So I've only got the stock that I've got left in the salon. But I'm gutted. So I just think I don't want to sell it. I just want to keep the stash for myself. Obviously, not all colours soon with, but you know, I don't care.
They're not going to let anyone else sell it apart from themselves, are they not?
They're just going into department stores now. I think it's obviously just massive in House of Fraser and stuff like that. So Harvey Nicks, they've got like massive department stores. And I guess from a business point of view, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, this is just my thing. I guess from a business point of view, to manage salons and spas, they've got to have reps that go round. And, you know, I think just the cost implements, and maybe they just don't need us anymore.
That's a real shame.
Yeah, but I've still got the stock, and if I do like makeups or anything like that, I still use it. But yeah, I'm just a big fan myself, so I totally get that. So obviously we've been in lockdown. It's been a horrible situation, and we are coming out of it, but in it, who knows what we're doing right now. It's a bit of anything and everything, isn't it? But so for me, I became obsessed with this eggs and ham thing, and it didn't start off as an obsession. My husband made this ham in like the little cupcake tins, and just put an egg in it and put cheese on top. And then I just raved about it, because obviously my husband had made it. It was a little bit of a Facebook post going, oh my gosh, Andy's just made me these, they're so yummy. But then every day, I was proud of having them, but every day people were sending me messages going, oh, Louisa, I've tried this, I've put black pepper on, I've put chili on, I've put paprika on, I've done this variation, I've put salami in it. And it was like, wow, I've started this thing. I don't mean I've started it, and then I didn't make it up or anything, but amongst my friends and people that I knew, people were sending me all their concoctions of it. So I was like, oh wow, I've started something. So have you become obsessed with anything during lockdown, like ham and eggs or exercise or something?
I wish I could say exercise. I was going to do, like, I was going to work out every day, and I was going to use this opportunity to do all of this stuff. No, I didn't. You know, I'm afraid I'm as human as the next person, and despite my knowledge, you know, lockdown completely really kicked my butt in terms of mentally, emotionally, not wanting to do stuff, all that kind of thing. But I suppose what I did get into, because I think I did really well, and I was really conscious of not like trying to turn to alcohol and all the rest of it through it. And then we got to about, was it end of May, June time, and there was yet another setback in terms of reopening my clinic and all of that. I've been doing quite well and not snacking and all the rest of it. And then one evening I was just like, sod it, you know. And there was a big packet of crisps there, you know, the big kind of Tyrrell's type big bags. And I sat there and I ate the lots, and you know, and then every night for the next however long, it was a glass of wine, some crisps and all of this, and all of a sudden I was like, you know, expanding going on, and I was just like, this isn't good. And you know, I could feel the effect it was having in terms of how I felt. So I got into really exploring non-alcoholic alcohol drink substitutes. So yeah, and so my husband's like, now what have you ordered? You know, and all, because all you know, I like wine and I like gin and tonic and all of those things, and I know, and I'm sitting there like enjoying my wine, thinking, I know, because I've written a whole chapter, or you know, I've written whole things about how alcohol does to your hormones and your liver function. And I'm sitting here quaffing my glass of wine, and I know it's not making me feel any good. But I thought, but I want something else, and it's really exploring, you know, that whole why do I want that drink. But for me, it's all about having that adult time and that down time where you pour the drink. So I thought, well, I know I don't want to just be drinking like squash or something. So there's a whole world out there of non-alcoholic, you know, kind of adult drinks, and I've been trying these like fancy kombuchas, which are meant to be a bit like white wine, and some of them are quite pleasant. I've been sampling all the different 0% beers, you know, there's loads out there now. And then there's also all these kind of gin and tonic pretend drinks and all the rest of it, again trying to keep it low sugar and all what have you. So I've got really into trying all these different drinks, you know, because I was so conscious of what I was doing to myself. So yeah, that's kind of what I've got into.
I love it. That is definitely a new one. So you know, people say the same, like the exercise or the whatever, or I've been doing this routine or that. I love that, non-alcoholic. So you've literally explored every. Have you found any vodka and something non-alcoholic?
Gin and tonic substitutes, because they use kind of like, you know, the juniper flavors from the gin and everything. So they use the botanical side of things, but in a tonic type drink. So you've got the flavor. Okay, you don't obviously get that hit of the alcohol, but it's still the flavor, and it's still, if you put it in a nice, you know, the kind of glass you put your gin in and all the rest of it, and maybe put a slice of lime or lemon in, or as you would with your gin, then you get that whole, this is my time, this is my well done for being a good adult today moments, you know. And same with the beers I find taste much more beery, you know. You do get that feel of I'm having a drink, and yet it just shows really it's not the alcohol bit you need, is it? It's that mental downtime, the action of pouring the drink and sitting down and going.
Because I can't, you know, if I go somewhere and my friends laugh at me because I love vodka and I love wine, but don't give it me in like a plastic beaker or something like that, because I'd rather just not drink it. And people go, why, Louisa, it's just the same. And I go, but like you have to say, it's the feeling I get when I've got a fancy glass and or a nice glass. I mean, it doesn't have to be a posh glass or anything like that, but I like it to be a glass and clean and stuff like that. So I don't want to be drinking out of a water cup. I'd rather just not drink. So I think you're right. It's not necessarily drink to get drunk. It's drink to enjoy that time and that drink and that, like you said, mental downtime.
It really is, and it's, you know, it helps. And don't get me wrong, I still have some wine, I still have some real gin, but it's not an every, you know, in lockdown at one point it was becoming a let's open a bottle of wine, let's have a gin, and you know, I could feel what it was doing to me, and it was just, you know, it wasn't great. And that's
you listen to your body, don't you? And especially you, because you know exactly what it's doing to you.
Well, that's the thing though, but I did, you know, you feel I'm trying to educate people about their bodies and health, and there's me knocking back a glass of wine. I'm thinking,
but every now and again we've just got to do it.
Well, I am fully human, you know. I struggle with it. I struggle with exercise. I struggle getting going with it, you know. And again, it's part of behind what I do, because you see some people who are just like naturally exercise people, you know what I mean, who've always exercised and always done it. I was the kid picked last at school who would do anything to get out of PE and all the rest of it. And so it was that whole mindset around movement and exercise, and trying to battle that now as an adult, you know, especially as I am at the age, the hormones are starting to shift, you know, it's easy to get the tire around the middle, all of that. And it's like, for me, it's a real struggle, the whole trying to be active and trying to be healthy. So yeah, it's the struggle is real. It's suddenly I know this stuff and it's suddenly easy to do. It's not, you know, but it's constantly chipping away at it. And so for me, trying to, you know, make sure that I manage around alcohol is you know, I've never been a problem drinker, but from a health perspective, you don't have to be a problem drinker for it to be damaging your health and hormones, you know. And so I'm just so conscious of that, and, you know, conscious of, I want to kind of lead by example, you know.
I get that.
So, but yeah, I've had a great time ordering all these random drinks.
Some it's very interesting.
With more success than others. I've yet to find a substitute wine, like a red wine, that actually tastes like something you'd want to drink. I think I'm almost tempted to go, actually, do you know what? If you're going to have a glass of wine, have a really good quality glass of wine and really enjoy it, but just have it less often and shoot your drinks with other things than trying to drink a fake wine that just doesn't cut it. I guess some are just not going to cut it, are they? Like, my kind of go-to drink is vodka and soda, so I guess it's not that unhealthy because of the soda side. I'm not saying the vodka's healthy, but like you say, just one or two is probably better than, like you say, overkill. Or if you can't find a substitute for something, then just have one and not as many. It's about being mindful, isn't it? Because I don't believe in telling people like never have a slice of cake, you know, that's just not realistic. And what, you know, life is for living and enjoying.
You drive yourself, you want it more, don't you?
Oh God. So yeah, I'm a big believer in having some of it, but it's about being mindful. I mean, certainly when I did my previously super stressful job, I'd be the kind of person they'd go, oh, you know, so-and-so's brought donuts in because it's their birthday, or they're leaving or having a baby or coming back from holiday or whatever. And you go to the kitchen and there'd be a plate of donuts, and that's all I could think about. So I'd be at my desk working, and all I could do, even though I'd had one, was I'd go, there's a plate, you know, and I'd want that sugar and I'd want that sugar. And then I'd go home and I'd have my evening meal, and I literally forgot that I'd already eaten maybe 2 donuts at work that day, and then would then go, oh, it's after dinner, I'll have this treat or have this piece of chocolate or whatever. And it's mindlessly, you know, there's no acknowledgement of what I put into my body through the course of the day already. And now for me, it's about going, I am going to have that slice of cake when I go for coffee with a friend, and I'm going to really enjoy it, but I'm going to think about that later on in the day and go, well, actually, Marianne, you've already had a big chunk of cake today, so actually tonight you really need to up your veggies and not have a dessert. You know,
I think you get that addiction, like, you know, they say that sugar addiction, because I do that. If I have nothing throughout the day, as in no sugar, I don't crave it or anything. But if I've had something at lunchtime, or like you say, I don't really like donuts, but something of sorts, then I don't know, after my evening meal, I'm having something else, and I think, oh my gosh, I've like probably had all of my calories for today in this chocolate and whatever else I've had, plus my meals.
And then you wonder why it's like, you know, over the course of a year or so, you kind of gone up a size. And I remember a lady I worked with before, she's like, oh, you know, when I was in my 20s, I struggled to stay, you know, around the 9 stone mark. And in my 30s, I struggled to stay around the 10 stone mark. And now I'm in my 40s, I'm struggling to stay below 11 stone. And I remember thinking, well, and do you know what? I've had exactly the same battle. And you know, it's a work in progress, and it is constant work to you know, stay on top of it. But now I'm becoming more mindful about how I eat and what I eat. It is easier to do, but it's this disconnect, brain body. We're so out in somewhere up in our heads with everything we've got to think about, that you're right, you go home and you forget that you've eaten the treat during the day.
And I think it's sort of almost, if you think you've forgotten about it, you can almost justifiably have that other piece or that other thing. And like you say, it is that disconnect. I think if we switch off from it, then we think we're all right, but actually being more mindful will actually probably make you make better decisions. Yeah,
it was just going, okay, well, do you actually need that? And you know, one of the things that really helped me start that process was when I was pregnant with my children and had diabetes. And, you know, suddenly, and again, this is a real psychology I think a lot of women have. When I was carrying those babies and I knew like eating a chocolate bar was going to potentially harm my unborn child, I was able to look at that chocolate bar and
Wow.
totally resist, because I was like, that's going to hurt my baby. And all of a sudden, that chocolate bar was not attractive.
Yeah.
The moment I delivered, I sent my husband to Patisserie Valerie to bring me, right, this big chunk of cake and everything. And he brought to me, I was on the labour ward, or, you know,
Bless you.
a few days, and he brought me this Patisserie Valerie box. I'm like,
Oh, no. But I suppose it comes back to that thing of putting other people first. That just literally is evidence in itself that you wanted it, but they came first. So no, but the minute you don't have to put them first, I'm on it. I'm having it all.
well, it really is, and it's kind of that psychology of why do we not view ourselves as worth enough, you know, to look at the chocolate bar with dispassion. But you know, it's kind of, if you start thinking about what is in something and how is it serving my health, you know, you can okay, not all the time, you know, go and enjoy the cake, with your friend, do whatever. But then when you get to the evening, going, okay, how have I benefited my health today? Have I had veggies? Have I had some good protein? Have I had some good fats? Have I what have I done on the sugar side of things? Okay, so now my evening's going to be dictated by that.
Yeah, I like that. So, do you know what? Gosh, I've loved chatting to you. I'm so inspired. I feel like we could chat all day about this. It's such a massive topic. It's really interesting. So job on the list is to definitely buy that book.
You know, because this is the kind of book you can give your girlfriend.
Am I all right to share your details actually? Because then I'm guessing you'll put something on your business page anyway.
No, absolutely. But yeah, I'll be putting stuff on there. So feel free to go and have a look. Feel free to follow me as well for all sorts of
definitely
pieces.
So
thank you.
I was going to say, what would you leave people with to inspire them? I mean, I think your book's inspiring in itself, but what bit of advice or words of wisdom would you leave our listeners with, just a bit of inspiration? The whole thing has been inspiration, but
I think the key thing to take away is trust that you've actually got more control over your own health than you think you've got, and that everything you do, think, eat, encounter has an impact on your health. And if you can start thinking in those terms, you will start making different decisions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Marianne. It has been so interesting to talk to you. And I really, really hope people buy this book, because I think it's just really, really important for women and everybody to educate themselves. So thank you so much for coming on.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. I'm Louisa Ashford. I hope you have got so much value from this podcast. As always, thank you so much to our guests for coming on. Now, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my Podbean channel, and also don't forget to take a look at my YouTube channel so you can see all of these exciting videos. There is also the membership site, louisaashford.co.uk, and of course the free Facebook group where there is loads of educational material creating salon success. Thanks so much.